It is a beautiful, beautiful sunny day today. It almost seems like winter is going to end early this year. I really have my fingers crossed for that. It's probably not a good thing in that if we don't get a ton of snow, but we did get a lot of snow at the beginning. Generally, it's not good for fire season. So maybe I'll hold off my wish for an early spring. But I wanted to do a little walk and talk and share some thoughts I have on the present situation in Canada, which is, I think, looking good as far as a step in the right direction. Of course, this is a long war. This might be a small victory in a long war. But just wanted to make a few announcements. One is I have to check my notes here. I have a new podcast. So Liberty on the Land is back. I can't say that it's going to be something that is happening all the time, but it is back. And I've got probably my favorite person to talk to, Joel Salatin. So episode 23 of Liberty on the Land is back. And Joel and I got into I titled the podcast, The Macro Perspective, Public Problems and Private Solutions. And I think that title actually kind of speaks for itself. Salatin has been a friend of mine for a long time, and I met him 12 years ago, I believe, and seen him speak in person many times, hung out with him many times. It's a conversation I wanted to have for a long time, especially with all the stuff that's transpired over the last couple of years. And I don't think you'll be surprised to know Joel's position on a lot of it, which is awesome. Joel is a true veteran fighter for liberty, and I couldn't imagine having a better guest on the Liberty on the Land podcast, because that's what that podcast is all about. So that is up right now. You can go to libertyontheland.com. Of course, if you're a FromTheField.tv member, it's up there. It's also up on my Odyssey and BitChute channels. And I'll put all those links in the show notes here if you want to check it out at any of those places. Other announcement is 7-day free trial for From the Field. Again, this is where I post all the content that I've created up here on the homestead. So you can check that out with no commitment. If you don't like it, no hard feelings. And I also want to announce that I'm coming back with a From the Field members live stream. This will be February 17th at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Gonna try doing a different time slot with these, just so I can get a bit more uninterrupted time. When I've been doing them in the morning, I spend time with my kids and my family in the morning, and so I'm going to try doing it in the evening. I know that isn't the best time zone for everybody in the world, but I doing my best, so bear with me. So that'll be this Thursday, February 17th at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that will be for From the Field members only. So if you are a member, go to the latest video where I announced the stream and click in the description. There'll be a Zoom link in there that you can join, and of course just leave your comments and questions there, and then I will get to them, and there'll also be a live chat in the Zoom call as well. So I wanted to talk about the whole thing that's happening right now in Canada with the truckers. I did a video on it last week, which was very well received, and I think there has been a victory here, and it's worth mentioning, and it's worth celebrating this. The truckers have been successful. Let's not beat around the bush. The lying media, of course, won't admit that. They never will. But the thing that's so amazing about it's almost been 2 weeks. I think, by this Friday, they'll have been there for 2 weeks. And the legacy lying media has really finished up the nails in the coffin for themselves, because they've just discredited themselves, because they've lied so consistently over the last 2 years. Oh, what a beautiful view here. They've lied so consistently over the last 2 years. They lost most of the credibility that they had left. But these last 2 weeks have been amazing to just watch them get caught in so many lies. And there are so many live streamers there that they just can't get away with it. And so it's really good news. So that's a big win for the people. The legacy media is in its death throes now. Like they're really a chicken with their head cut off, running around in panic. And, they have all their little propaganda marketing departments sitting there around a round table trying to figure out the next thing they can try to pin on the truckers. And it just doesn't work. None of it sticks. It's so good. I love it. But you can see right now that mandates have been dropped in Alberta officially just as of midnight last night. All health mandates are done. No masks, no vaccine passports, none of the BS. Done. Saskatchewan followed after that, or they might have been, but I'm not sure if theirs has come into effect yet. And Quebec, even Quebec, which has been the most tyrannical province in Canada during this whole BS scam, are dropping it as well. So it's just a matter of time until British Columbia follows suit and Ontario and the rest. The people have had enough. And it's so obvious when you see the numbers of people out in support of the truckers. You can't deny it. It's totally a situation of, it's kind of like the living meme. The legacy meme of 2021, I think, was that image of that that CNN correspondent standing behind a bunch of people running around, lighting fires, and a massive flames behind him with the title "Mostly Peaceful Protests." That meme pretty much encapsulates the mainstream narrative that is essentially 2 + 2 is 5, right? You can see for your own eyes that 2 + 2 is 4, but they're telling you that 2 + 2 is 5, therefore it is. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And so it's so great that that this is having an effect. And of course, I'll make a prediction right now. And I could be wrong, but I predict that by the end of the month, February here, this will mostly be done in Canada. Hopefully, it catches on the rest of the world. But again, like I said at the beginning, it is a small victory. We won a battle in a long war, and they're not going to stop. The New World Order folks, the Bilderbergs, the Davos Group, the World Economic Forum, the Rockefeller Foundation, Johns Hopkins University. These cronies aren't going to stop here. They've put out a lot of white papers over the last year. Some of them like Cyber Polygon, some of the UN documents that came out outlining the social credit system or international vaccine ID they want. This stuff is going to come back, and I don't say that because I want to manifest that. I'd love for all of this to be over, but the problem is these people have played their hands so hard that there's really no turning back for them. So they have to go forward with something. We're going to get we're going to get a break from this, which is, hey, I welcome a break. I would love to have a spring and summer where I can just walk into a restaurant and not have people freak out at me for not wearing a mask. I would love to see that. Having said that, I think what's going to happen here is this is like the old saying, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's often how tyranny moves. And so this is 1 step back. So they really moved hard. They pushed to see what the boundary was. They let people kind of sort themselves out, and then they go, okay, let's just see what works, and then let's taper it back a little bit. This is all going to come back, and it'll probably be in the fall, but who knows? But they're not done with this, you guys. They're not done with this, and don't let this little break we might have in the summer slow down your efforts for preparations, whether that is getting yourself off grid, getting your food, water, energy, and shelter under control. Do not stop your efforts there. Continue your efforts. That's exactly what I'm doing. But again, a nice little break from this BS is welcome. I've got probably 6 more months. Well, I think I'd like to make a commitment that my goal is to be as set up as I can be by the fall. I'd love to be living in my house by winter. My gardens will be done. Maybe not 100% done because it is a big project, but I plan to get a lot of trees and berry bushes into the ground. I've already got all the materials for at least half of one of the terraces of my garden, which is 16 3 foot by 16 foot by 1 foot deep garden beds. I've got all those materials. Still need to get some soil up here. But I'm not slowing down my efforts. and I hope you don't either, because these tyrants, if they don't follow through with this, at least this is my interpretation of what they're thinking, is if they don't follow through with this, it's the gallows for them. Maybe in a metaphorical sense. I don't believe in killing people, but at the same time, for some of the brutal crimes that some of these people have done, maybe that kind of justice is suiting. I don't know, but this is a battle in a long war, and so what I would like to see, and what I hope to put out into the sort of public consciousness, is that all these mandates, they will be dropped, because in a way, the system and the people that are behind this big scam, they got what they needed with this. So what do I mean by that? Well, they got a lot of people to take their experimental injection, and like a lot. They also got a lot of people to sign on to their passport system, their electronic passport system. And they've also been very successful in creating a massive divide in society. Like, I've never witnessed anything in my life like what we've seen. And almost every person I know in my life has had significant effects in their family or their social life. So, family members split apart, divorces, brutal custody battles over kids. I mean, geez, being divorced in a time like this with children has got to be rough. And in friend circles, same thing. So they've been successful in dividing the population, it's the oldest strategy of the tyrants in history, at least that I know of, is divide and conquer. It's such a cliche, but it works. And a society divided will fall. But the trucker convoy has shown us that we aren't actually all that divided. We might be divided. Each of us might have some division in our family and some of our older friend circles, but when you look at the throngs of people that are out and showing support, it's amazing. So there is actually a massive amount of unity, and I'm really, really optimistic about that. And so what I think should happen with all of this is a number of things. One is, so we talked about a bit last time, the mandates have to go. That's going to happen. Doesn't mean they won't be back, but that's got to happen. And guys like Chris Sky, who I have kind of mixed feelings about, but he is a popular, outspoken activist leader here in Canada and the world. He says that there should be the end of the mandates, and then stage 2 is going for justice, or he says united non-compliance, and then go for justice. If I believed in the justice system and I believed that it worked, I would agree with him. But the honest reality is that the justice system is so corrupt. The judges are corrupt. The courts itself are a corrupt entity, because our legal system is a commercialized, compartmentalized, and commodified system that, with your birth certificate and your corporations and your all caps names, you're just a unit of bondage. So the courts are just a private racket for a very small group of people to rob you of everything that you have. So there's no justice in the courts. So I'd love to say that there's going to be justice, but I don't really think that's going to happen. I actually think we have a longer way to go until we actually see a real justice, because I don't think it's possible to have real justice until we have a complete reconstruction of the system, that maybe we go to some kind of natural law system where we only have one law, really, which is the golden rule. You don't need any other laws. You don't need statutes, mandates. You don't need any of this. You only need to have a basic understanding that you do not harm others, and you do not coerce others, and all this, and all that can come from the golden rule. So needless to say, I don't think we're going to see justice. So what I'm saying should be a most important next step is to expose the New World Order agenda And I think at this point, when we see the amount of unity with these folks, I think it's going to be time to start exiting our interest in politics, because what you can see right now is politicians are scrambling to ride the coattail of a cultural phenomenon. And I said this in the last video, as Andrew Breitbart said, is politics is downstream from culture. You can see that case in point right now. There are a number of conservative politicians that have come out. There's even a liberal MP of all people that came out. And most of those people weren't really saying much when all this was going down. And if they were only saying the things that would kind of keep them in the safe zone, right? Because that's what they do. You read Carol Quigley's Tragedy and Hope, which every truther should read this book. Quigley really talks about how experts are always put in place by as he refers to the Milner Group, which is basically the consortium of the New World Order, to control the narrative. And that's where you have people. This is why you'll say, some people will say, well, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but blah, blah, blah. The fact that you just said that is that you're pandering to the safe zone, which is BS. It's totally BS. If most people knew actually how brutal all these injections are, I think most people would actually be anti-vaxxers if you're willing to be honest and look at the real science and actually have some morality in yourself. And yeah, just willing to be honest, you're going to say, yeah, I don't believe in any of that shit. But this is what they do, is they control that narrative. And so you see all these politicians jumping on the bandwagon now because they can see there is clearly a visible majority of people that are tired of this. And how I like to think about it is the traditional bell curve, which is a symbol that you can use for many things. And on the bell curve, you have your typical bell. In the center, you have the median, which is in this case, say the majority of people, and then you have outliers on the bottom of the bell, which would be polar opposites in viewpoint. So in this case, it would be on one side of it, you would have the people that they want more mandates, they want 3 masks, they want more boosters, they want to lock you down, and they're obsessed with this narrative, and they sort of this secular people that have just replaced God with government, and they're obsessed with anything government says. And then you have freedom people on the other side of it, myself included, that are saying, don't want anything to do with it, this is insane, we want freedom. So those two will never see eye to eye, but the people in the middle can go either way to whoever makes the best case in a logical argument, which I believe is very easy to win when you look at the lies of the media. And so where I'm going with this is that majority is now on our side, I believe. From what I can see, it's clear as day, especially the working people who make this economy function. We're all together. And so where we need to go with that is, in our language, we need to expose what this agenda is. We need to talk about these things like Cyber Polygon. We need to talk about Event 201. These things need to come out, because we're not finished with this. This is kind of the finishing move to end this thing once and for all. But even then, we have a lot of cultural undoing that we're going to have to do. We need to keep pushing down on this and keep hammering this narrative of speaking out against the New World Order. And we need to start really coming together. So all these truckers, all these farmers, all these working people who are looking around at their fellow man, and seeing that we need to work together, because these assholes who are running this show, or trying to run this show, and they want to convince you that they run the show, but they don't. They want you divided, and they want you to just give up. They're hoping that if they can get politics and politicians to get in front of our movement, and then steer it, because that's what they do. This is how they co-opt a narrative, just like they did with Occupy Wall Street, is they can get some politicians out to say some things that sound good, and then they just slightly tweak the narrative, and they put it back into the margin. They put it back in the safe zone, where you're not talking about the New World Order, you're not talking about the central banking system, you're not talking about all the things that actually matter. You're just talking about ending mandates and getting back to normal, which, okay, I support that, but that's not the full story. So we need to keep exposing that narrative for what it is, and exposing the people that are involved. You know, Klaus Schwab and all these cronies, and the Davos School. Justin Trudeau is Klaus Schwab's all-time student, and Klaus Schwab openly admits that he has half the cabinets of the world under their control. There's a video that went viral about that. You can find it. It's easy to find. But that needs to be exposed. And then after that, and during it, really, we need to start coming together. We need to start coming together to create our own parallel economy and society. A society that shares the common values with people, family, the sovereignty of the individual, sound money. You know, put the things in that you think you really stand for. And we need to come together on those things and stop being so dependent on the state, and stop being so dependent on big corporations. We literally need to create a whole new economy. And if we don't start doing this, if this doesn't start happening, when the elite continue in their death throw temper tantrum, they're going to pull all the levers of disruption. And that's in their documents. That's what cyber polygon is. This is or the cyber pandemic. They're going to blame things on Russia. You know, I don't know if you guys saw that one clip of that CBC journalist who was just reading her script and talking about how Russia's behind the trucker convoy. She could barely keep a straight face. But they're going to pull all the levers, and then they're going to blame it on the truckers. They're going to create shortages, which they've already been trying to do. And they're going to blame it on the truckers. So be prepared, be diligent that this isn't over yet, but celebrate the success that we've had. And, you know, like I said, I've never in my life said I've been proud to be a Canadian, but I am right now. And I'm not proud to be a Canadian to the de facto state of Canada, but I'm proud to share this land with my brothers and sisters who stand for liberty and stand for family and stand for justice and truth. That's who I stand with. And right now I feel like that's what it means to be a Canadian, and I'm more proud than ever to be in that clan of people that stand for those things. And so let's celebrate it, but let's be diligent and let's stay focused. And if you are preparing on your land like I am, remember, it's all about your food, water, energy, and shelter. You got to have those things under control. You got to control where all those things are coming from so that they can't be cut off. Because I truly believe that as this whole thing continues and they see a rising resistance, they are going to pull all the stops. And I think it's just going to be a continuing, ongoing process. You know, I've said this before in live streams and previous videos, but my red pill moment was when I was about 20 years old on I'm 42 right now. I was on a drive with my dad, who unfortunately passed away this summer, or this spring, or last spring. But I was on a drive with my dad to Nelson from Kelowna. I used to live in Nelson. I went to music school there, and we were having a long conversation, and he explained to me about the central banks. And it totally woke me up. And that was the beginning of my awakening. Even back then, so this was 22 years ago. Even back then, my dad had been talking about stuff like that throughout my teenage years, and it was always 5 seconds to midnight. It was always, oh, the shit's gonna hit the fan tomorrow. You know, make sure you get gold and silver and all these things, which which of course I support and encourage. But the thing that I want to try to convey to you is that these things don't necessarily move as fast as you assume they might. This has been a long grind, and it takes a long time to change culture. Just as you've seen, I mean, you can go and watch, I've referenced Yuri Bezmenov many times, but even type that into YouTube and watch Yuri Bezmenov's interview in 1984 with G. Edward Griffin. And it was well on its way then. As he refers to the ideological subversion of America and Western culture, this has been in motion for a long time. That video itself from 1984 is what was that, 38 years old. And it's well underway. So it's most likely possible that this whole process of demoralization of Western culture has been in motion for over 60 years. You can go back and watch John Birch societies that are black and white back then talking about this. And a lot of what happened with McCarthyism and sort of the Red Scare was a result of that, but they co-opted that whole movement and they steered it in the direction that they want. McCarthyism wasn't necessarily a good thing, but the concern of communist infiltrators was a real deal. And look at where we're at today. Look at the modern sort of Marxist propaganda that's dumped on children in public schools around the world. And you see folks like Project Veritas exposing that stuff, which is awesome. But this has all been underway for a long time. So to my point, it's going to continue that. There's no question that 2 years ago, or in April when all this really started of 2020, that it accelerated. The plan went from beta to operational, basically, and it's accelerated and it's moving forward. There's no question about that. But don't just think that it's all just going to flip the switch tomorrow. And the reason I say that is not because I want you to lie back and chill out. I want you, just as I want myself and my family and all my close friends, to stay vigilant and diligent. Work your ass off to hustle. Be thankful that we'll have a little break from the bullshit this summer. But keep your hustle on, folks. Don't get comfortable with this, because I think that's actually what they want you to do. I think they want you to get comfortable. I think they want a lot of the preppers to just go, oh, you know what? Maybe it's all going to go back to normal. Let's not worry about getting our seed saving happening. Let's not worry about getting our fuel storage and our gardens. Let's just take it slow and let's enjoy some vacation time. No, don't do that. Don't be cucked by the New World Order. Keep your focus on the prize, because this thing, they're not going to just let this go. These assholes have been working at this stuff for so long, and all their white papers are out there. So keep at it. But the reason I say that it's not going to happen overnight is because sometimes people get really fearful. And I see a lot of people, and really close friends of mine in the truth community, and I've fallen victim to this myself at times, is you get overwhelmed with the evil that is happening and the absolute out in the open tyranny and corruption that we see. And it gets you really pissed off. And if you're always thinking it's 5 seconds to midnight, you won't necessarily stop to smell the roses. And you should, because we should enjoy life. If we don't enjoy life and we don't share moments with our family and our friends and stop to enjoy all the beauty that God has created for us, if we don't do that, we actually lose. And I think this whole fight, we should be having a good time. We should be laughing and making jokes and enjoying life as often as we can. And it's kind of like that saying, we fight not because we hate what's in front of us, but because we love what's behind us. And that's really what you got to think about it. This has to be about love. This doesn't have to be about hate. Don't get hung up on stupid politicians like Justin Trudeau, because they're irrelevant. They're just puppets. And even in their own little society, their own little private members club, they're all worthless to each other. These people are willing to sell out anybody at any time. And so in a way, I think there's going to have to be time for, of course, accountability and justice, but also compassion. And a lot of the people that we think are these evil dictators, well, they are, but they have also suffered systemic abuse their entire lives, and that's why they have been brought up into this meat grinder of a system that just churns out psychopaths. That's, you look into things like satanic ritual abuse and all that, and there's so many publicly documented cases of this stemming right up to the most powerful people in the world, at least powerful in politics and banking is concerned, but powerless as far as God is concerned. These people are godless, and I think there's going to be a time that we're going to have compassion, because some of the things that are going to come out in this fight are going to be so brutal that I think there's a risk that it could also corrupt individuals, because if you are thirsting for revenge and bloodlust so much, that evil can consume you. And if we become what they are, ultimately we lose. Because I think this is a spiritual battle at its core. And in this spiritual battle, we have to transcend what we are physically. And if we fall victim to hatred and violence and evil and degradation, then it corrupts us. And it's almost like this is some kind of mind virus. And if you let that mind virus consume you, you just become what you hate. And so we have to be compassionate, and we have to not do what they've done, because there will be a reckoning. And I don't know when it'll be, but I do think that this is going to carry on for a while. Granted that it has accelerated in the last 2 years, and who's to say that it won't accelerate? It probably will. But it's not all going to happen tomorrow. If you've been paying attention as long as I have, and I know a lot of people that watch my videos are far more educated on these matters than I am, and I always try to learn and pay attention to what people are saying. But it's always gone like a slow grind, because at the end of the day, the thing that is most liberating with all of this is that you are actually the one in control. We are the creators of this world, and the elite know that. So they get us to create their reality by telling us to do certain things. And so if you understand that, they need your consent to do all of this stuff. Without your consent, without your support, the whole thing changes. And so that's why it's been a slow grind, is because they really just need the numbers. They need people worshiping at the altar of money, really. And it's the worship of the bull, the bill, the buck, bullocks. They need you to worship at that altar. And I can't say that I fully understand everything, how this reality works, but I do know that it always comes down to the power of people, and the power of people's thoughts are what manifest reality. And the more people that you can convince reality is one way or the other, the more that reality becomes real. The more of the idea of that reality becomes real. So our minds and our hearts and minds and our spirits are the most powerful things that we have. And so if we can stay focused and stay together and find common unity with people and recognize what is the evil that permeates our society, who are the players, call them out. Truth is our most valuable weapon in this. Truth and love are our most valuable weapons in this fight. But if we don't know who we're fighting and we don't expose these people, then we don't know where we're going, and then that's how we can be divided and conquered. And so it's so important, like I said, now that this victory that we've achieved with the truckers and shown the masses of support and exposed the legacy media lies, phase 2 is expose the New World Order agenda and stop giving your power to politicians, because these politicians are going to try to step in front of this movement and try to co-opt it. And many of them, probably most of them, are co-opted themselves and they don't even realize it. There's always handlers that are steering the narrative, and so we need to expose that agenda while keeping focused on our own resilience, our own private societies, and we need to build a better world, not build back better, a new sort of satanic cult that the New World Order would love to convince us of. That's not what we want. We need a truly equitable society. And maybe someday we'll have some form of natural law where we don't even have statutes and codes. We have what's common to us, what's right and what's wrong. Because this isn't, at the deepest level, this isn't about politics. This isn't about left or right. It's about what's right and what's wrong and what's true. And yeah, I think that summarizes my thoughts, but I'm feeling better than I've ever felt right now about the state of the world. And again, don't let it go to your heads. This is a small victory. Celebrate victories, but stay diligent, stay focused, and work hard to set yourself up. All right, folks, we'll see you in the next video.